Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dominique Martin, a licensed therapist. Today, I want to talk about something that shows up in so many relationships, but often goes unspoken, and that's emotional unavailability. So, if you ever felt like your partner is physically there, but emotionally distant, or maybe you've been told you're hard to reach emotionally, I'm gonna break down what emotional unavailability in relationships actually is, what it looks like, where it comes from, and most importantly, how to start shifting towards emotional connection. All right, let's unpack it. So, emotional unavailability is when someone has difficulty fully connecting on an emotional level, or an inability or sometimes unwillingness to fully engage in emotional connection with a partner. And this can look like difficulty expressing feelings, avoiding vulnerability, shutting down during conflict, or keeping conversations surface level. It's important to understand emotional unavailability is not always intentional. Often it's a protective response. So, what does it actually look like in a relationship? You might notice that your partner avoids deeper conversations or changes the subject when things get emotional. Or during conflict, they might shut down, go quiet, or emotionally withdraw instead of engaging. Or they might have a hard time expressing how they feel. Or they might minimize your emotions when you bring something up. And over time, you might start to feel alone, even though you're in a relationship, or like you don't feel fully understood or emotionally safe, or like the relationship is a space where you can't really be yourself. All right, so now let's talk about how this develops because this part is really important. Emotional unavailability doesn't just happen randomly. A lot of times it builds over repeated experiences. And one of the biggest contributors is actually what happens inside of the relationship itself. So if someone repeatedly feels misunderstood, criticized, dismissed, or emotionally unsafe, they can start to emotionally shut down. Not because they don't want connection, but because it starts to feel like opening up isn't safe, which may lead to discomfort, conflict, or disappointment. So, your partner may take away from those types of experiences that it's not safe to go there emotionally. There are also deeper roots that can shape emotional unavailability. For some people, it may go back to childhood. So maybe emotions weren't talked about, or vulnerability wasn't embraced, or they had to learn how to handle things on their own. Or for others, it can come from past relationships like betrayal, rejection, or feeling emotionally neglected. And over time, that creates a fear or reluctance of being vulnerable again. Attachment patterns can also sometimes impact emotional availability, as some partners may develop avoidant tendencies where closeness feels uncomfortable or overwhelming. This is another thing that can impact emotional availability, and that's chronic stress or emotional burnout. Because when someone is overwhelmed, emotional connection may feel like too much to endure, or emotional unavailability can deeply affect relationships in many ways. For example, a loss of connection and closeness, increased conflict, or unresolved issues or feelings of loneliness, even when you're together. And resentment may start to build over time, and relationships, communication may start to break down. And you might get a sense that the relationship is not an emotional safe space. And when emotional safety is missing, connection may naturally suffer. And this has a real impact on relationships because you can start to lose that sense of closeness because conversations stay on the surface and connection just ain't fully there. So, now let's talk about what you can actually do to become more emotionally available in your relationship. The first step is building awareness. So start paying attention to your own emotional patterns. When something comes up, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And also, what do I usually do when I feel this way? This is important because you can't share what you don't recognize. Also, the next step is practicing saying your feelings out loud. And this don't have to be perfect. For example, it could be saying something like, I feel overwhelmed right now. Or I don't fully know how to talk about this, but I want to try. That alone starts to shift the dynamic. All right, another really important piece is emotional safety. So if you want more openness in a relationship, there has to be space for it. And that means listening without interrupting, not jumping to criticism, and acknowledging your partner's feelings, even if you don't fully agree. Because when partners feel safe, they open up more. And also during conflict, try to slow things down. A lot of emotional shutdowns happen when things feel intense. So instead of emotionally withdrawing completely, you can say something like, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Can we pause and come back to this? That keeps connection in place instead of closing the door. And also, it's helpful to reflect on your own history and ask yourself, when did I learn that it wasn't safe to be emotional? What experiences made me start holding things in? Because once you understand where it comes from, you can start choosing something different. Emotional unavailability is often something that develops for a reason, usually for protection. But one thing that is important to remember is the goal isn't to suddenly become open overnight. It's just to become a little more aware, a little more willing, and a little more present. That's where change starts. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more relationship insights. As always, stay motivated and I'll see you on the next video.